Hello, welcome to Reality Stories, where stories do come alive. Please subscribe and share with friends. Now relax and enjoy the story. The sun was beginning to set over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The street was buzzing with the usual evening life. Children playing football with makeshift goalposts, women returning from the market with bags balanced on their heads, and the hum of generators already breaking into the calm. Michael stood at the balcony of his duplex, sipping a glass of chilled water. His phone buzzed with new emails from the office, but his eyes weren't on the screen. Instead, they were fixed on the small moving truck parked outside the house next door. For years, the house had been empty, its paint faded, its compound overgrown with weeds. But today, someone was finally moving in. A slender woman in a long dress stepped out of the truck. She wore dark sunglasses, even though the sun was fading. Two young men carried boxes behind her. She pointed quickly toward the house, giving quiet instructions. Michael raised an eyebrow. Interesting, he muttered to himself. From the balcony, he could see her more clearly. She had fine, delicate features, her skin glowing like polished bronze in the fading light. There was a grace in the way she moved, measured, careful, almost as if she didn't want too much attention. Just then, his phone rang. It was his cousin, Peter. "Mike, I beg, don't tell me you're still working on those files," Peter teased. Michael chuckled. "Not at all. Something more interesting just happened. Someone's finally moving into the empty house next door." "And? After how many years? Who's the person?" Michael narrowed his eyes, still watching. "A woman. Early 30s maybe. She looks different." Peter laughed. "Different how? Fine or suspicious?" Michael smiled faintly. "Both." They joked a little before hanging up, but Michael's eyes never left the woman. Later that evening, while the neighborhood settled into its usual rhythm of flickering bulbs, generator hums, and vendors calling out their wares, Michael decided to take a little walk. As he passed the gate of the house next door, he slowed. Through the half-open gate, he could see her directing the men as they carried in a final box. She noticed him and paused. Their eyes met for the first time. "Good evening," Michael greeted politely, offering a friendly smile. She hesitated for a moment before replying, her voice calm, almost musical. "Good evening. You just moved in?" "Yes." She adjusted her sunglasses, even though night had already fallen, still settling down. "Well, welcome to the neighborhood," Michael said. "I'm Michael. I stay right next door." She gave a faint nod, her expression unreadable. "Clara, that's a nice name." She didn't respond to that. Instead, she glanced back at the men carrying the last box inside. Then, almost as if she suddenly realized she'd said too much, she tightened her lips. "It was nice meeting you," she said quickly. And before Michael could continue the conversation, she slipped inside, shutting the gate firmly. Michael stood there for a few moments, surprised. Most new neighbors would chat, maybe even ask a few questions about the street. But this woman, she seemed like she didn't want anyone too close. As he walked back to his house, Michael thought, strange woman, but there's something about her. It didn't take long before Michael realized that his new neighbor was far from ordinary. At first, it was little things. She hardly came out during the day. Her curtains were always drawn, the windows firmly shut, even when the heat of Lagos made most people throw their windows wide open. At night, the faint glow of light would seep out from between the curtains, but no one ever saw her in the compound. The neighbors whispered. "I heard she moved here alone," one woman said while buying bread from the corner shop. "Alone? That kind of woman? I doubt it," another replied. "She must be hiding something. Nobody moves into a place and just locks themselves up like that." Michael tried not to pay too much attention to gossip, but then he began to notice things himself. It started one night, a week after Clara moved in. Michael was up late, working on his laptop in the living room, when he heard the sound of a car pulling up next door. He glanced at the clock. It was past midnight. Curious, he peeked through his curtains. A black SUV was parked in front of Clara's house. A tall man stepped out, carrying a small briefcase. He knocked on the gate, lightly. After a pause, the gate opened just enough to let him in before shutting again. Michael frowned. What kind of visitor comes at midnight? The next morning, when he passed by the house, there was no trace of the SUV. Another time, while returning from a business trip, he noticed a package on Clara's doorstep, wrapped in brown paper, tied with twine. He thought she wasn't home, but before he even reached his own gate, the door opened and a hand swiftly pulled the package inside. The door shut again. It happened again 2 days later, and again the following week. Packages always came. They never lasted more than a few minutes outside. And then there were the sounds. One evening, while Michael sat in his garden reading, he thought he heard faint sobbing. At first, he dismissed it as a TV playing next door. But when he leaned closer to the walls separating their compounds, the sound was clearer, a woman crying softly, trying to muffle it. He stood there for a long time, debating whether to knock on her gate. But something stopped him. What if she got angry? What if it wasn't what it seemed? The next day, he tried to ask her casually. He saw her early in the morning, taking out a small bag of trash. "Good morning, Clara," he called. She looked startled but forced a polite smile. "Good morning." Michael hesitated, then said, "I thought I heard something from your house last night. Are you okay?" Her face changed instantly. Her smile vanished and her eyes grew cold. "I'm fine," she said firmly. "You must have heard something else. I mean, if you ever need—" "I don't," she cut in quickly. Then she added in a softer voice, "But thank you." She turned and went back inside, shutting the door behind her. Michael stood rooted to the spot. Her tone hadn't just been defensive. It had been fearful. That night, while talking with Peter over the phone, Michael mentioned it. "Guy, I don't know what's going on with this woman. Midnight visitors, strange packages, cry in the night, it doesn't add up." Peter laughed nervously. "Mike, you better mind your business, Lagos women and their drama, in no day finish. Before you go and put yourself inside Walla." Michael sighed. "You don't understand. It doesn't feel like drama. It feels serious." "Serious how?" Michael thought carefully before answering. "Like she's hiding from someone. Or something." For a while, Peter was silent. Then he said quietly, "If that's true, then you should be careful, Mike. Very careful." Michael didn't sleep well that night. Every sound from next door kept him awake. The creak of a gate, the distant hum of a car engine, the muffled whispers carried through the still night air. And though he tried to tell himself to mind his business, deep inside, he knew he was already too curious to stop. The power went out suddenly that night. Michael was sitting in his living room, laptop open, when the lights blinked twice and went off. Darkness swallowed the room. A moment later, the whole street fell into silence as generators struggled to roar back to life. But before most of them started humming, there was a rare, eerie stillness. Michael sighed, closed his laptop, and reached for the rechargeable lamp. As he adjusted the dim glow, he decided to step outside to catch some fresh air. The heat indoors was suffocating. The street was unusually dark. The moon was half hidden by clouds, and only a few flickers of candlelight escaped from windows. Children had long gone inside. The earlier noise of football matches was gone. Michael walked slowly toward the corner of the street, hands in his pockets. That was when he noticed a faint silhouette sitting by the gutter. He stopped. His heart skipped. The figure shifted slightly, then winced, clutching an arm. "Hello?" Michael called cautiously. The figure froze. Michael moved closer, the rechargeable lamp casting weak light ahead of him. When the beam touched the woman's face, his chest tightened. "Clara," he whispered. She looked up, her face pale, a cut across her forehead, her lips trembling. Her dress was torn at the side, and her sandals were missing. She looked like she had been running barefoot. "Michael," her voice was hoarse, almost broken. "Please, don't call anyone." Michael knelt beside her. "What happened to you? You're bleeding." She shook her head rapidly, eyes darting around as if expecting someone to jump out of the shadows. "No police. No neighbors. Just help me." Michael hesitated, his instincts battling within him. Every logical part of him screamed that this was dangerous. But her trembling hands and terrified eyes told another story. "Okay," he said gently. "I won't call anyone. Let's just get you inside." He helped her to her feet. She stumbled, leaning heavily on him. He wrapped an arm around her shoulder, guiding her back to her house. The street felt unusually long that night, every rustle of leaves making Clara flinch. When they reached her gate, she fumbled nervously with the keys. Her hands were shaking too much to fit them into the lock. Michael took them from her, opened the gate quickly, and led her inside. The house was dim, lit only by a single rechargeable lantern on the floor. The curtains were tightly drawn. The air inside smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else, like burnt paper. Michael eased her onto the sofa. "Sit down. Let me get some water." But before he could move, Clara grabbed his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly firm despite her weakness. "Michael, you don't know who's watching us." The word sent a chill down his spine. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Who's watching?" "Clara, what are you talking about?" She shook her head, eyes glassy. "Not now. Just don't tell anyone you saw me like this. Promise me." Michael stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I promise." She released his wrist, and he hurried to fetch water and a small first aid box from his own house. As he cleaned the cut on her forehead, Clara winced but said nothing. Her silence felt heavier than words. "Who did this to you?" Michael asked again softly. Her eyes shifted away, fixed on the tightly shut curtains. "If I tell you now, you won't sleep tonight." Michael's hands froze, the cotton swab in midair. He didn't push further. For now, it was enough that she was safe, at least physically. But deep inside, his curiosity burned hotter than ever. The next few days changed everything between Michael and Clara. He found himself checking on her constantly, bringing food, making sure she was healing. At first, she resisted, insisting she was fine. But gradually, the walls she had built around herself began to crack. One afternoon, as Michael brought a bowl of pepper soup from a nearby restaurant, he found her sitting in the living room without her sunglasses for the first time. Her eyes were striking, large, with a sadness that seemed to carry entire years of pain. "You didn't have to," she said softly as he set the tray down. Michael smiled faintly. "It's nothing. Besides, everyone knows pepper soup heals faster than medicine." For the first time, a small laugh escaped her lips. It was brief, but it warmed the room. They ate together quietly. Afterward, Clara sat back, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. She seemed lost in thought. Finally, she said, "You must think I'm strange. The neighbors already gossip about me, don't they?" Michael hesitated. "They wonder. But I don't care what they say. I just want to understand you." Her eyes flicked to his, then away again. "Understanding me is dangerous, Michael." "Why?" She took a deep breath, as though gathering courage. Then, in a low voice, she said, "Because I'm running from someone who won't stop until he finds me." Michael leaned forward. "Who?" She swallowed hard. "My ex-husband." The words hung in the air like a heavy curtain. "He's not just anyone," Clara continued, her voice trembling slightly. "His name is Richard. He's powerful, a politician, influential, connected. When I left him, I thought I'd be free. But men like Richard don't let go. They hunt you." Michael frowned. "Is he the one who hurt you the other night?" Clara looked down. "His men, they always find me, no matter where I hide." Michael clenched his fists unconsciously. "Why don't you go to the police?" She laughed bitterly. "Police? Michael, he owns them. He buys them. If I report him, I'll disappear by morning." Silence filled the room for a moment. Michael studied her face. Everything she said sounded believable, yet something in her eyes made him wonder if she was hiding parts of the story. "Clara," he said carefully, "if Richard is that dangerous, then why come here? Why this neighborhood?" She hesitated, then said, "Because this is the last place he would expect me to be, hiding in plain sight." Michael wasn't convinced, but he didn't push. Instead, he asked, "Do you have family? Someone who can help?" Her expression darkened. "No one." Richard made sure of that. The pain in her voice was raw, unfiltered. Michael's chest tightened with sympathy, and something else he didn't want to name yet. Over the next week, Clara opened up more. She told him fragments of her story, usually late at night, when the neighborhood was quiet. One evening, sitting on the balcony, she said, "When I first met Richard, he was charming, handsome, powerful. I thought I was lucky. But behind closed doors, he was a different man, controlling, violent. He wanted to own me." Michael listened intently, anger rising inside him. "So you left him?" She nodded. "I took nothing. No clothes, no money, nothing. Just ran. And since then, I've been moving from place to place, never staying too long." Michael leaned back, staring into the night. "And now he's looking for you." "Yes," she whispered, "and he won't stop." But as much as her story touched him, Michael couldn't ignore the inconsistencies. Sometimes Clara said she left Richard a year ago. Other times, she mentioned things that suggested it had been much longer. She said she had no money, yet the packages delivered to her house often looked expensive. One evening, when he asked directly about the packages, she froze. "Those are things from someone who helps me," she said quickly. "A friend. You wouldn't understand." Michael narrowed his eyes. "Clara, are you telling me everything?" She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "I've told you enough to put you in danger already. Don't ask for more." Her words sent a shiver down his spine. Yet, despite the doubts, Michael found himself drawn to her more and more. The fragility in her laughter, the fire in her eyes when she spoke of survival, it made him protective, almost obsessed. Late one night, as they sat in her living room, she whispered, "You shouldn't be here, Michael. Being close to me, it could ruin you." Michael looked at her firmly. "Maybe, but I'd rather stand with you than watch from afar while you suffer." Her lips parted as if to argue, but no words came. For a moment, the walls around her heart seemed to collapse. She leaned against him, and for the first time, Clara allowed herself to be held. But even in that fragile moment, Michael couldn't shake the thought echoing in his mind. "She's still not telling me everything." The line between sympathy and desire blurred quickly. Michael had tried, at first, to maintain boundaries. He told himself he was only helping Clara out of kindness, that his visits were just neighborly concern. But the truth crept in late at night, when he found himself thinking about her smile, the sadness in her eyes, and the way her laughter, rare as it was, made him feel alive. Clara, too, seemed to struggle. She often pulled away when their hands brushed accidentally. Sometimes she would avoid him for days, locking herself inside. But whenever he showed up at her door with food or insisted on checking her wounds, she let him in. Slowly, her defenses began to crumble. One evening, after a heavy downpour, Michael came over with steaming cups of tea. Clara sat on the couch, wrapped in a thin shawl, her hair damp from the rain that had leaked through her roof. "You can't keep living like this," Michael said, handing her a cup. "You need repairs. You need someone to take care of you." Clara smiled faintly. "And who will that be?" "You." Michael met her gaze, serious. "Yes, if you'll let me." Silence stretched between them. The rain pounded against the windows, drowning out the hum of distant generators. "Michael," Clara began, her voice trembling, "you shouldn't say things like that. You're engaged." His chest tightened. Sandra. He hadn't told Clara much about her, but the truth lingered in the background like a shadow. "I know," Michael admitted. "But things with Sandra, they've been over for a long time. I just never said it out loud." Clara looked away, gripping the cup tighter. "You don't mean that. You're just caught up in this mess I dragged you into." Michael leaned closer, lowering his voice. "No, I mean it. You think I don't know the risks? You think I don't know you're complicated? Still, I can't stop wanting to be here." Her breath hitched. For a moment, she looked at him as though searching for a reason to push him away. Instead, her eyes softened and she whispered, "You'll regret this, Michael." But she didn't move when he touched her cheek. She didn't pull back when he kissed her. It was gentle at first, hesitant, like two people unsure if they should cross the line. But soon it deepened, fueled by the weight of secrets and loneliness. For Clara, It was a desperate grasp at warmth in a life full of fear. For Michael, it was a reckless surrender to a passion he couldn't deny. From that night, their bond changed. They became inseparable, finding excuses to see each other. Their romance was a quiet storm, hidden behind drawn curtains, whispered in dark corners. But no secret stays secret forever. Within weeks, the neighborhood began to talk. I saw Michael leaving her house at midnight. One woman whispered at the tailor's shop, "Humph. And what about Sandra? Has he forgotten the wedding is in 2 months?" Another replied. By the time it reached Sandra herself, the whispers had turned into sharp daggers of truth. She came to Michael's office one afternoon, her heels clicking against the tile floor like gunshots. "Michael, we need to talk," Sandra said, her voice firm but trembling. Michael dismissed his assistant and closed the door. "Sandra, this isn't the place." "No, this is exactly the place," she snapped. "Because if I wait until we're home, I might do something I'll regret." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Sandra, please. Don't please me, Michael. Everyone in the neighborhood is talking. Do you think I'm stupid? You think I don't know you've been spending every night with that woman next door?" Michael froze, his silence confirming her fears. Sandra's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was sharp. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you haven't thrown away years of us for some stranger who just appeared out of nowhere." Michael swallowed hard. "Sandra, I didn't plan for this. Clara, she's been through so much. She needs me." Sandra laughed bitterly. "She needs you? What about me, Michael? I've stood by you for years. I've been patient, supportive, faithful. And now suddenly this mysterious neighbor arrives and you forget me." Michael stepped closer, his voice low. "It's not about forgetting you. It's about realizing I was never truly in love. Not the way I am now." Sandra's face crumpled, pain etched deep in her features. She turned away, whispering, "You'll regret this, Michael. She's hiding something. I can feel it." And with that, she left, slamming the door behind her. Michael leaned against the wall, guilt pressing heavily on his chest. But when he thought of Clara's trembling smile, his resolve hardened. Whatever the world said, whatever Sandra believed, he couldn't let Clara go. Sandra wasn't the type to walk away quietly. In the days that followed, she became obsessed with uncovering who Clara really was. If Michael wouldn't listen, she would find the truth herself. She started small, asking neighbors what they knew. Most only had rumors. "She doesn't talk to anyone," one woman said, "but she gets strange deliveries at night." Sandra dug deeper. She bribed a delivery boy who admitted he often dropped sealed envelopes at Clara's gate. She hired a private investigator, using her savings to fuel her suspicion. The breakthrough came when the investigator returned with documents, old newspaper clippings, bank reports, and a grainy photo of Clara standing beside a man in a sharp suit. "Richard." Sandra stared at the photo in shock. Clara was smiling, elegant, her hand resting on the arm of Richard, a known politician whose name had been in the news months ago during a corruption scandal. The investigator explained, "Your neighbor's real name is Clara Williams. She was married to Richard Williams, former commissioner. They were accused of embezzling over 200 million naira in government funds." Richard disappeared when the investigation began. Clara, too. Until now. Sandra's heart pounded. She could barely breathe. "So, she's not just some abused woman?" The investigator shook his head. "No, Ma. She was part of it. Whether she ran because of him or because she wanted to hide the money, I don't know, but she's not innocent." Sandra dismissed him, her mind racing. That evening, she went to Michael's house, her anger boiling over. She found him in the living room, scrolling through his phone. "Michael," she said coldly, tossing the documents onto the coffee table. "Read this." Michael frowned, picking them up as he skimmed the pages. His expression shifted from confusion to shock. No, this can't be true." "It is," Sandra snapped. "Clara Williams, your mysterious neighbor. She's not a victim, Michael. She's a criminal. She stole money with her husband, and now she's hiding. And you've been protecting her like some lovesick fool." Michael shook his head, refusing to believe it. Sandra, this doesn't make sense. Clara told me she left him because he was abusive. Sandra crossed her arms. Of course she did. That's the perfect cover story, isn't it? Poor, helpless wife, running from a powerful man. Meanwhile, she's sitting on millions, using you as her shield. Michael threw the papers down, his voice rising. Stop it, Sandra. You don't know her like I do. She's not like that. Sandra stepped closer, her eyes blazing. And you don't know her at all. You're blinded because you want to save her. But saving her will destroy you, Michael. She'll drag you into her mess, and when the truth comes out, you'll go down with her. Michael turned away, his chest heaving. He wanted to reject everything Sandra said, but the doubts were already creeping in. He remembered the expensive packages, the late-night visitors, the evasive answers, the cracks in Clara's story. Sandra's voice softened, almost breaking. Michael, I love you. I've loved you for years. Don't throw your life away for a woman you barely know. Michael closed his eyes, torn between his loyalty to Clara and the undeniable evidence before him. Finally, he whispered, "Leave, Sandra." Sandra's tears spilled, but she lifted her chin. Fine, but remember this. When the mask falls and you see who Clara truly is, don't say I didn't warn you. She walked out, leaving Michael alone with the documents. His hands trembled as he picked them up again. Clara's face stared back at him from a newspaper clipping, smiling beside Richard. The same Clara who had whispered her fears into his arms, who had kissed him in the dark. Michael sank onto the sofa, his world tilting. For the first time, he wondered, had he fallen in love with a woman who was lying to him all along? It was a Sunday afternoon. Michael had just returned from church, his Bible still in his hand, when he saw a sleek black SUV parked outside Clara's house. The sight made his heart race. For weeks, she had been quieter than usual, avoiding too much attention. Who could this be? He quickened his steps. As he approached the gate, he heard voices inside. Clara's, sharp and trembling, and another, deep and commanding. Michael pushed the gate open. There he was, a tall man in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit, polished shoes that gleamed in the sun, and a face that exuded charm and danger in equal measure. His smile was practiced, but his eyes were cold. Richard. Clara's breath caught when she saw Michael. Michael, please. Richard turned slowly, sizing Michael up like a predator studying prey. Ah, so this is a neighbor, he said, his voice smooth like silk, yet chilling. Michael clenched his fists. Who are you? Richard laughed softly. I'm the man you've been playing bodyguard for. The husband. Or should I say, the ex-husband. Clara stepped between them, quickly. Michael, don't listen to him. Please. Richard smirked. Don't listen to me? Oh. Clara, you haven't told him the full story, have you? Michael's jaw tightened. What story? Richard's voice grew louder, theatrically, as though he wanted the entire street to hear. This woman you're protecting, she didn't run because of abuse. She ran because she stole millions from government funds with me. Then she disappeared, pretending to be a victim. While I faced the heat, she vanished with the money. Clara shook her head violently. Lies! Michael, don't you see what he's doing? He wants to destroy me. Richard laughed again, pulling a folded document from his pocket. He tossed it onto the table in the compound. Go ahead, look at the evidence. Bank accounts, transfers, all in her name. Clara Williams, the master thief. Michael's eyes darted to the papers, but his heart wavered. He wanted to believe Clara. He needed to believe her. Clara grabbed Michael's hand, her voice breaking. Michael, listen to me. He forged those documents. He's trying to turn you against me. That's what he does. He manipulates. He wants me back under his control. Richard leaned casually against the wall, smirking. Control? No, my dear. I just want what belongs to me. The money. And maybe you. His eyes glistened with menace. Michael stepped forward, anger boiling. If you think you can come here and intimidate her, you're mistaken. Richard's expression hardened instantly. And if you think you know the woman you're protecting, you're even more mistaken. For a moment, Silence weighed heavy in the air. Then Richard straightened his suit, gave Clara one last cold smile, and walked back to his SUV. Before he drove off, he lowered the window and said, "Sooner or later, Michael, you'll see. She's not who you think she is." The SUV roared away, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Clara collapsed onto the chair, her hands shaking. Michael knelt beside her. "Tell me it's not true," he whispered. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "It's not. Michael, you have to trust me. Richard will do anything to drag me down with him. He's powerful, and he knows how to twist the truth. Please, don't let him win." Michael wanted to believe her. He told himself he believed her. But in the back of his mind, Richard's words echoed like a curse. The doubts gnawed at Michael. He tried to silence them, but they grew louder with each passing day. One evening, Clara left hurriedly, claiming she needed to meet a friend who could help her. Michael stayed behind, restless. His gaze drifted toward her house. For the first time, he crossed the line. He entered her house without knocking. The living room was dim, the curtains as always tightly drawn. He walked slowly, his footsteps echoing. His eyes landed on a drawer slightly ajar. Something inside glinted under the light. Curiosity overpowered guilt. He pulled it open. Bundles of cash. Stacks of $100 bills, neatly wrapped with bank bands. His chest tightened. He pushed them aside, revealing a small leather bag. Inside were passports. 3 of them, all with Clara's face, but under different names. Michael staggered back, his heart pounding. His mind raced with betrayal, anger, fear. The sound of the door unlocking made him freeze. Clara walked in, stopping dead when she saw him. Her face went pale. "Michael, what are you doing?" He held up one of the passports, his voice trembling with rage. "What is this, Clara? Who are you?" She dropped her bag, tears instantly filling her eyes. "Michael, please. I can explain." "Explain," he snapped, his voice rising. "Hidden cash? Fake passports? Were Richard's words true? Have you been lying to me this whole time?" She stepped forward desperately. "It's not what you think. Yes, I took money. Yes, I ran. But I didn't do it for myself. I did it to save my son." Michael froze. "Your son?" Clara nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Richard has him. He's keeping him hidden like a bargaining chip. I stole that money to negotiate, to have something that could make him release my boy. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd never look at me the same." Michael's head spun. He wanted to scream, to accuse her, to demand proof, but the desperation in her eyes pulled at him. "You had a son all this time, and you never told me?" Clara sobbed, her knees buckling. "I couldn't. I was trying to protect him. Richard uses him against me. That's why I keep moving, why I can't stop looking over my shoulder. Every lie I told, every secret I kept, it was all to keep him safe." Michael's anger cracked, replaced by a deep ache. "But why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth?" Clara reached for his hand, her voice breaking. "Because everyone who knows the truth ends up destroyed. And I couldn't bear to lose you too." For a long moment, Michael stood frozen, torn between love and betrayal. The evidence screamed that Clara was guilty, but her tears whispered that she was a mother fighting for her child. Finally, he pulled his hand away. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Clara collapsed to the floor, sobbing. "Michael, please believe in me. Believe in us." Michael turned away, his chest heavy. In that moment, he realized the truth wasn't black and white. Clara was both victim and villain, both liar and survivor, and he was trapped in the middle, unable to walk away, unable to stay without doubts. As he stepped outside, the night air hit him like a slap. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, and the sound of a generator rumbled. But in Michael's ears, all he heard was Clara's voice echoing after him. "You don't know what it means to be a mother. You don't know the price I've paid." The night was thick with silence, the kind of silence that felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Clara walked cautiously into the old warehouse on the outskirts of town. Her steps echoed on the cracked concrete floor, each sound swallowed by the shadows. She clutched a small black bag, the one Michael had seen earlier with the stacks of cash. Her hands trembled. "Richard," she called softly. Her voice cracked. From the darkness, a pair of footsteps emerged. Then another. Richard appeared first, tall and calm, followed by two men in black. His suit looked out of place in the dusty, abandoned building, but his smirk fit perfectly. "Clara," Richard said smoothly, spreading his arms as if welcoming an old friend. "You've always known how to find me." Clara's jaw tightened. "You said if I brought the money, you'd let me see my son." Richard chuckled. "Straight to business. I miss that about you. Always desperate, always bargaining." He gestured to one of his men, who took the bag from Clara and began checking inside. Her eyes darted around. "Where is he? Where's my boy?" Richard walked closer, lowering his voice. "Do you really think I'd hand him over just like that?" "No, Clara. You took everything from me. Now it's my turn." A sudden noise from the back made Richard pause. From the shadows, Michael stepped out, his face hard, his fists clenched. "Leave her alone, Richard." Clara gasped. "Michael, why did you follow me?" "I couldn't just let you walk into this alone," Michael said, his voice firm though his chest pounded. "This ends tonight." Richard's smirk widened. "Ah, the knight in shining armor. You think you can save her? Do you even know who you're saving?" Michael didn't flinch. "I know enough, and I know you've hurt her. That's enough for me." Richard laughed, clapping his hands slowly. "So noble, so stupid." He snapped his fingers, and the two men pulled out guns. Michael's heart raced, but he didn't move. Clara stepped in front of him, her voice desperate. "Stop. This is between me and you, Richard. Don't drag him into it." Richard's eyes gleamed. "But he's already in it. Thanks to you." The tension thickened until the sound of phone buzz broke through. In a quiet corner outside the warehouse, Sandra crouched low behind a rusted barrel. Her phone pressed her ear. "Yes, this is Sandra Green. I need the press and the police here now. It's urgent. Corruption. Kidnapping. Richard Williams." "Yes, record everything." Her voice shook, but her eyes burned with determination. Back inside, Michael's patience snapped. He lunged forward, tackling one of the armed men. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the warehouse. Sparks flew as a bullet struck a metal beam. Clara screamed. Chaos erupted. Michael fought fiercely, dodging blows, his knuckles raw. Clara grabbed a piece of broken wood and swung it at the second guard, knocking him down. Richard, meanwhile, pulled a gun from his own jacket. He aimed at Michael. "Say goodbye, neighbor." But before he could fire, Clara hurled herself at him, clawing at his arm. The gun went off, the sound deafening. The bullet tore into the ground just inches from Michael. Michael scrambled to his feet and punched Richard hard across the face. Richard staggered back, blood spilling from his lip, but he didn't fall. "You think this is over?" Richard hissed. "I own this city. I own the police, the judges, the media." Suddenly, a swarm of bright lights burst through the broken windows. Voices shouted outside. Reporters, cameramen, police officers storming in. Sandra's plan had worked. Richard froze, his gun still in hand, as cameras zoomed in from every angle. Reporters shouted questions. "Richard Williams, did you steal government funds? Are you holding a child hostage?" The mask Richard had worn for years began to crack. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. Clara stood beside Michael, shaking but unbroken. "It's over, Richard." Richard's men fled as the police surrounded him. Officers shouted for him to drop his weapon. But Richard wasn't done. With a furious roar, he raised the gun again. Michael grabbed Clara and shoved her to the ground just as the police fired. The sound of multiple shots filled the warehouse. Richard fell backward, the gun clattering from his hand, his suit soaked in red. His empire, his lies, his reign of fear, all collapsing under the glare of camera lights. Clara wept, trembling in Michael's arms. The boy she had fought for was still out there, but Richard's grip was finally broken. The morning sun was bright, too bright, as if mocking the heavy silence that hung over the neighborhood. Outside Clara's house, police cars lined the street. Neighbors stood in clusters, whispering. Michael sat on his porch, exhausted, his face bruised, his heart heavier than ever. He stared blankly as officers moved in and out of Clara's home, carrying evidence, bags of money, documents, fake passports, proof of everything she had hidden. At last, Clara emerged, her wrists bound in silver handcuffs. Yet she walked with her head held high, her eyes steady. The crowd gasped. Some cursed her, others pitied her. Michael stood, his chest tightened as their eyes met. "Clara," his voice broke. She gave him a faint smile, tired but strangely peaceful. "I told you, Michael, you'd never understand the price I paid." He took a shaky step forward. "Why didn't you trust me? Why carry all of this alone?" Her eyes glistened. "Because love doesn't fix everything. Sometimes survival means becoming the monster you hate. I stole, I lied, I deceived. But every step was for my son." Michael swallowed hard, torn between anger and sorrow. And now, Clara's lips trembled. Now, at least the world knows the truth about Richard. And maybe my son will finally be free. Sandra appeared at Michael's side, her arms folded, her face a mix of triumph and bitterness. "She used you, Michael. She used all of us. Don't waste your tears." Michael glanced at Sandra, then back at Clara. His voice was soft. "She may have lied, but she also fought. And maybe that's why I can't hate her." The officers began leading Clara away. The crowd pushed forward, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. As she was placed in the back of the police van, Clara turned her head one last time toward Michael. Her voice was barely a whisper, carried on the morning breeze. "You'll never understand the price I paid to survive." The door slammed shut. The van drove off. Michael stood frozen, watching until it disappeared from view. A hollow ache filled him. The woman next door, the mystery, the danger, the love, the betrayal, was gone. But her shadow would linger. In his heart, in the whispers of the neighborhood, and in the headlines that blazed across every screen. The woman next door, hero or villain? Michael sat back down on his porch, burying his face in his hands. He had loved her, lost her, and uncovered truths that would haunt him forever. The street felt emptier now. Yet every time the wind blew against her old curtains, he would remember her whisper, and he would wonder, was Clara Williams truly a criminal? Or just a mother who fought the world the only way she knew how?